This is gonna be part 3 of my sketchbook tour slash burnout recovery series, in which I go back and look at old sketchbooks to see if I can scrounge up and find any inspiration that might apply to me today when it comes to facing my burnout with my drawing. Last video, I think I got a little bit sad. I don't know, I can't promise that that won't be the case this time because you'll see. So the next few sketchbooks we're gonna go through are gonna be late 2017 to like 2019. Maybe a little into 2020, I don't know. Well, firstly, just to give some preface, this was when I graduated high school. I graduated when I was 17. This was when I started working like regularly part-time because I had already had a job, but it was very, very, very super part-time. But this is when I had this is when I started working, okay? I was going to school full-time. I was working a part-time job. So this was when my drawings kind of started to become more like sparse. This was during the period when I was really trying to get into animation school. I did go to animation school. I didn't go to like any of the like private schools, you know. I didn't go to SCAD, okay? I didn't go to Pratt. I didn't go to CalArts or RISD, RISD, I think I forget which one that is. I didn't go to like any of like the super big popular ones because I couldn't afford it, and I did not want to take on the crazy amount of loans that it would have taken to go to one of those schools. I can talk, I guess when I get there, I'll talk a little bit more about animation school, because that I think is also one of the pillars that kind of inevitably led to my burnout. But let's get into it. So this was, I believe, my first ever Moleskine sketchbook. This was when I had my own money and I was able to buy my own art supplies, which I was very excited about. So this was my first ever Moleskine. I was very happy because they're kind of like the trendy sketchbooks to have, or at least they were. Maybe they still are, I don't know. This was my self-portrait. I had overgrown roots with the teal hair. Yeah, so anime style is completely gone. Anime style is fully gone for the most part, and I was really, really trying not to draw fan art at this point. Even though I still was, it was in the back of my mind that like, fan art is bad. Don't draw fan art. You're not gonna get into animation school if you draw fan art. Look at this little bear. He's so cute. Oh, here we go. We have some more Earthbound fan art. Ugh, I don't really like the texture of this. We got some more Earthbound fan art. We got Ness. In the game, you can get like infected with spores from like mushrooms. So this was like my interpretation of that. I say the anime style is fully gone, but it's like the anime style never really leaves. It just kind of reinvents itself, you know? So we got a cool girl in some cacti and another cool girl. I was trying to do different kinds of faces at this point in time. That was like a big thing, was like getting expressions and stuff. Oh, I kind of like this character. She's pretty cool. Yeah, I was doing a lot more like abstract, kind of psychedelic art. That's what I was kind of starting to explore a little bit more. See, look, we have this guy, this cool guy, the jacket, and the leather jacket. Ooh. Okay, this is a deep cut for me. Who remembers Cow Chop? The Let's Play channel. Yeah, the Let's Play channel. Okay, I have Cow Chop fan art in here. Look at this. I was drawing Cow Chop fan art. Wow, rest in peace, Cow Chop. We got like some people wrapped up in wires. I was also kind of getting into like body horror elements and themes, which is kind of funny because I like really didn't watch horror movies when I was in high school. Like I just really wasn't into horror films that much, but for some reason I was very interested in exploring it in my art. I don't know where I was getting the inspiration from. Oh wow, look at this. We got just some characters. I used to just draw like, I don't know. This was really when I was starting to try to make my sketchbooks look more aesthetically pleasing for social media purposes, which would later bite me in the ass. Look at this ugly fucking elf guy. I love him. I love him. Oh my god. Still a lot of EDM fan art. I was going to raves a lot at this point. Yes, I was just starting school. So yeah, this sketchbook took me a lot longer to fill because, hey, I had other stuff going on, you know what I mean? Next, we have this sketchbook. Stickers on the back. So this is the portrait, is me like an alien. I still had my fucking teal hair, apparently. Oh, you know what? This was also when I was really into Marvel. Yes, I was into Marvel, okay? My favorite movie was Doctor Strange because it was trippy and weird. I saw Doctor Strange like a couple times in theaters, and one of the times I saw it, I was on LSD, and it was crazy. It was insane, actually, like insane ass experience. I was crazy back then. I remember not particularly like loving this, like the quality of this sketchbook. Also, it's like the sketchbook with like the tear out pages, so some of these pages are like about to fall out. Yeah, so this was one of the drawings I was really proud of, like all like crazy and fractally and weird. This was when I started watching this one YouTuber, Peter Draws. I don't know if he really posts that much anymore, but he drew like a lot of like crazy, super intricate, kind of psychedelic almost looking stuff that I was really inspired by. Yeah, I remember not really liking like the paper quality on this because it was like it just didn't take well to like multimedia. Look at that little bird people, and the Nautilus that's flipping you off. See what I mean? Like, look at this. Like, the bleed through this is like incomprehensible. Like, look at this. This is overstimulating to look at. Oh, I remember I was very intrigued by transhumanism and cyborgs and like robot things like that. So I was drawing a lot of that kind of stuff. This is based off of I had just recently discovered King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and they had just put out their album Flying Microtonal Banana, and so this is like, I was drawing this while I was listening to the song Rattlesnake. It is just like a giant rattlesnake like amalgamation creature. They were a huge influence on my creative inspirations for a while. This is kind of around the time when my brain was starting to slowly melt and my drawings started to become more and more out there, I guess. Yeah, like just like crazy shit like this. I was just really into drawing just insane stuff at one point, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I remember this sketchbook specifically was one that I was going to do like my first sketchbook tour on when I had the idea to make a YouTube channel when I was like 17. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because God, like there's so much of this that just I can't even. It's so incomprehensible because the sketchbook quality is so terrible. I mean, it was just very. It was getting crazy. Okay, it was getting crazy, and that theme will continue for the foreseeable future. This next one, after the horrendous quality of the last sketchbook, I was like, I want another moleskin, so I got another moleskin. Yes, we have stickers on the back. I made this sticker the DIY way of Mod Podging it to my sketchbook. We have this. This is my self-portrait. Doesn't look very much like me. I think the nose is a little bit too wide, but you know, I was really trying not to do anime anymore, or like super obvious anime styles. This was when I had officially started school. I wasn't quite in animation school at this point in time. I had taken a year before I started my animation stuff to do. I was still there's some stuff going on, so I was just doing like my gen ed courses at this point. Oh look, we have some Cuphead drawings here. Aww. And then just like notes, fucking notes on random shit I don't remember. Whoa, this one's crazy. I remember being really proud of this one. Well, first we have some more Cuphead art because I really liked Cuphead. We have this crazy, vaguely Machine Girl inspired art. Whoa, look at this one. This is crazy. This is so weird. That's so cool. So this was officially when I started my art Instagram, where I had made like a separate Instagram account for all of my art stuff, and I wasn't just posting it onto like my personal page because that's what everybody else was doing. Yeah, looking back on it, I don't want to say I regret doing that, but I don't know. You know, hindsight's 2020. I think now, looking back on it, that is one of the things that really hindered my confidence, because at this point, I was really trying to improve my technical skills, because I remember like for a long time, I was watching like flip through my CalArts sketchbook with me. This is the sketchbook that got me accepted into CalArts, and the sketchbooks were always like so cool, and like I wanted to do that. I wanted to make one of like those kinds of sketchbooks. So I tried my hardest to make things like as like flowy and like aesthetically pleasing as possible, because I really wanted that. Which I don't know why I didn't, like I said, I wasn't even trying to get into CalArts or anything like that. I had known even back then that would have, if I had tried to go to one of those schools, I don't even know. Oh, look at this. I was also playing a D&D campaign at this point, and this was my character. She was a tiefling, of course. Look at me. Yes, I played a fucking tiefling sorceress, of course. I would doodle during like our sessions and stuff. Pretty fun. I miss D&D. I could use a good session of D&D. That would save me. This was when I was trying to get into like value and stuff like that. So look at this monster blob gelatinous eyeball creature. Crazy that thinking about it, like it is kind of crazy. The only like horror movies that I was really into were like Friday the 13th. Look at this, like transformation to like a demon creature. Yeah. And I think that's it. This one I filled up pretty good actually. But yes, this was my attempt at trying to make like a really aesthetically pleasing sketchbook that was good for social media purposes. And every sketchbook after that, I really tried to embody that. And looking back on it, I think that is, like I've said multiple times, I think that is what has kind of part of what has led to my burnout. Okay, so this one is fucked. This one is like really fucked up because it's like I just bought this because it looked cute. I think I got it at Barnes & Noble too. But it's like a Tokidoki sketchbook. Very cute, very cute. I literally cannot close it. It has to stay open like this. So let me just pull out all of my fucking homework. What even is this? This is a big sketchbook, and this one is actually pretty filled up, surprisingly. Because like I've mentioned in the past, big sketchbooks scare me. They still kind of do. Oh, look at this. Okay, so we have like, I remember being really proud of this. I can fucking close it. Jesus. The sketchbook is like terribly put together. It fell apart. Even when I was using it, it fell apart. As I have mentioned, I was really into Cow Chop, the Let's Play channel, rest in peace. So I had come up, this was like my own idea for like the logo for the channel. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I even like, look at me swatching colors and everything underneath here. I think I posted this on Twitter and I tagged them on it. I don't remember if they liked it or not. I don't know. Rest in peace, Cow Chop. Look at this. We have a giant sad bear. So cute. This, I remember I would like, just randomly between classes, I would just look at photos online and I would try to like draw from reference. So this is my attempt at that. Look at these, my first little anthros. Oh, I love it. It's so cute. A little bunny anthro, of course. But this was, I had to be more secretive about this because this was when it was culturally accepted to make fun of furries, and like furry cringe comps were really popular at this point. So I had to keep it on the DL, okay? My attempt at drawing various arachnids, it seems. What is that? I'm not gonna show this. Okay, yeah. We'll just put that back in there. This is a good exploration into the mind of untreated mental illness, perhaps. Just what it was. Oh, wait. We have more Junkrat fan art. Oh my god. Whoa. This is my first ID. It's like the paper ID. Why do I have this in my sketchbook? Dude, I have so much. What is this? What is this? So that was that sketchbook. Next sketchbooks, I believe we are officially in animation school. So we will get to that. This is the next sketchbook. Little bear guy. We have the back. Okay. This sketchbook is probably my favorite, I think. One of my favorites. Let's see. Here we have my self-portrait. I had like blue, like cobalt blue, dusty blue hair at that point. I was doing fuck all with my hair. My hair was a mess, okay? I did it all myself, and let me tell you, there were some bad choices made with my hair. Maybe I am not as jovial looking past through these sketchbooks because maybe the nostalgia hasn't quite hit as hard as it did for like my super duper old sketchbooks. But yeah, here we go. Here's a little spread that I like. More random sauce drawings. Oh, look at this. This is more early bunny drawings. Plus little guys. Yeah. So I think this is kind of where my style maybe started to stagnate a little bit. Because I think all artists, visual artists, like there's always this kind of like, there's always this sort of like plane, this mesa that you hit, this plateau, where you just find it really difficult to like improve, you know? And I think I was kind of hitting that point. Oh, look at this. This one I remember being really proud of. It was like, that was me. I had orange hair at this point. I had like bright neon orange hair. Just kind of like a little collage. I think one thing that I have found kind of frustrating and kind of annoying especially in like artists, specifically visual 2D kind of cartoon artist spaces, is that it has the tendency to be kind of infantilizing. Is that the word I'm looking for? so at this point, I was getting into animation school. And my experience in that, because I went to a state school, like I had mentioned, I didn't go to like a private school. Even in that situation, I don't want to sound mean when I say this, but talking about my life experience now kind of reminds me of how I felt when I was in school, if that makes sense. Like, artist spaces can have a tendency online when you're younger. Like I said, they can be kind of infantilizing. People don't really want to talk about, like, especially at the time, because I was on Tumblr, the talk of like sex and like drugs and like more like adult themes. It was kind of like it was difficult to talk about, I guess. It just felt weird to talk about. And so talking about like, oh, this is from when I did drawings when I was fucking binge drinking and doing LSD. It feels kind of weird talking about it because, like, I don't know, when it comes to like this kind of content, like sketchbook flip throughs and like artist stuff, there's a tendency to kind of just shy away from talking about it, or like the algorithm doesn't want to show that kind of stuff. Obviously, I guess. Where was I going with this? Right, and this is when I kind of started to feel really isolated in my life experiences, because I was in animation school and a lot of people around me were kind of sheltered, for lack of a better word. Like, at this point, I had already been, like, I was a commuter student. I didn't live on campus, which, if you've been to college, you know the commuter experience and like the living on campus experience are two completely separate things, like two totally different college experiences. So I was a commuter student. I literally drove to school like 40 minutes. It was a 40-minute drive from where I lived to my college, okay, back and forth for most of the week. And then I was working, you know, and like kind of having a lot of bad stuff going on in the background. And this is kind of when I started to feel kind of alone in my experiences, because I would just look around and it was just like people whose parents were paying for their college, people who didn't have a job, like they lived on campus and their job was to go to school, right? And very sheltered people who just like didn't really experience a lot of like the real world, when the last like few years had been me going through a lot of real world shit. And being in that kind of environment did make me feel like weird, you know? And I'm not saying that to like hate, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. I'm not hating on how people live their lives. I'm not hating on like I'm not here to have a struggle Olympics, right? Like, oh, these people haven't had it as hard as me. But I will say, like, being in an environment that didn't really feel like I could kind of talk about those things without it being too adult or too much. It did make me feel weird, right? But anyways, that was just a tangent. Oh yes, this was the beginnings of my old social media account name. This was me trying to come up with like god damn it. This was me trying to come up with like the logo for it. It was I used to call my art Instagram Clairvoyance, because it was just a play on the word clairvoyance. That was it. That was it. That was it. That was all it was. I was really trying to make that work for a while, but obviously I didn't end up keeping that name. But at the time, I think it was reflective of what I was drawing. I was drawing garden fan art. This was when I was really into the garden. So we have like, look at that. I got the little clown gestures and clown face and dog. Call the dogs out. Oh, because this was when that one album just came out. I don't know what the album is called. The yellow one. That one. It was pretty. That was like my favorite album for the longest time. We have a colorized version of my Dungeons and Dragons character. Her name was Maya, based off of Maya the Sidekick from Hesitant Alien. See, it all comes back. It all always comes back to Gerard in some way, shape, or form. As much as I want to avoid it, it's just not true. Oh, here we go. This is a funny one. Ah, that was how I felt during school / work. There's a lot of sad stuff in here, okay? I'm sorry, I'm just going through that. There's more vent art in here. Reading back on this is definitely like when the burnout was starting to burn out quite a bit. Look at this little e-person, e-girl, e-boy person. I was very proud of this one, I remember. Look at this little bunny. See, this is this is when I was starting to draw more anthros. Privately. I was getting kind of interested more in like graphic design and like less illustrations, more designy kind of stuff. Because I was just curious about that. But most of this is still obviously like character stuff. Oh yeah, I remember being really proud of this one. Pretty cool, pretty trippy. Oh, look at we have where the wild things are. Wow. I am so predictable, I guess. Oh, this is when Deltarune Chapter 1 first came out. Wow. Jesus Christ, man. Just saying that. So we have some Susie fan art. I love Susie. She is still one of my favorites. Ooh, look at this. We have some like 70s inspired drawings. I've always loved a good 70s bell-bottom jean / pant. Oh my god, we have burger pants from Undertale. I love burger pants. Okay. Oh, look, we have Finn. More Adventure Time art, of course. I think this was around when Adventure Time had finished. Was about to end, I'm pretty sure. And so it was like a huge deal. Oh, look at this. We have a drawing, an interpretation, artistic interpretation of how I felt at the time because I was so burnt out. I felt like I was dead. I'm sorry, that sounds really bad. That sounds really sad. But like, yeah, that was that. Okay, so this next sketchbook, I had heard about this brand called Crescent Render, which the whole like thing is that the paper doesn't bleed when you draw with like alcohol-based markers. So I really wanted one. So I was broke as fuck at the time, but I used what little money I had to buy myself one. And I actually did not like it that much. Because look at how the paper is just so thick that it just like wouldn't lay flat, and it really, really bothered me. But nevertheless, we have this sketchbook. Here we go. We have my self-portrait. I had fire hair at this point because I had just cosplayed as Paula from Earthbound. And I dyed my hair piss yellow for that, by the way. That's how dedicated I was to the cosplay. But after that costume, I was like, well, I really don't like how this looks on me, actually. So I just dumped red and orange hair dye on top. And it actually looked really cool. Look at this. We have little, like, tigers. Yeah, so a lot of these you can probably see on my Instagram from a few years ago. Because this is when I was really trying to make the art Instagram thing happen, okay? This isn't dated. I'm gonna assume this was like 2018, 2019. Oh, look at this. We have Blue Diamond and Peridot. Yeah, I really don't like how this doesn't lay flat. I don't know. Because the paper is really nice. I just wish that I don't know. Anyways. Yeah, see, like, I was so excited about having paper that wouldn't bleed through, so I would just, like, draw, like, on all the pages in marker, and it didn't bleed through. Like, the next page was perfectly fine, which is really cool. And then this is another self-portrait. I had very quickly dyed my hair back to green, At around this time is when I first started getting into photography as well, film photography to be exact. This is when I was kind of starting to really question my decision to go into animation school. I want to say within the first like couple semesters I was like, oh geez, I don't know. I was already kind of having second thoughts about it, but I just had to keep pushing through. At least I thought I did. I remember, I think the thing with like sketchbooks that are like good quality is that I felt a lot of anxiety about filling it up because like my drawings had to be perfect and like good enough for them. And so I would just like really not draw that much in them. Look at this first instance of when I changed my name to Funny Money. And it just stuck with me. It stuck pretty hard. Oh, look at this little demon, guys. Yeah, see, like, I straight up, after a while, I just, look at how much paper I had left in this that I just, like, didn't use because I just straight up hated drawing in this. Like, I just hated it. It just felt, like, too much pressure. There was too much, like, I hated how it didn't lay flat, and the paper, I had to use, like, a binder clip to hold the pages down, and I just, like, didn't fuck with it. So, that's pretty much it for this sketchbook. I think this is going to be the last one for this session. This is it. Very simple sketchbook. At this point in time, most of my art I was drawing digital for the most part. Anybody who has been to art school understands what I'm talking about, where like you literally just don't have time to draw what you like. You're spending all of your time drawing for school all of the time, especially if you're going to school full time like I was. So the next selection of sketchbooks that I'll show in the next video, which it's gonna be a little difficult because these sketchbooks aren't from that long ago, but the next batch of sketchbooks after this are gonna be very scattered and very like, this is when it hit. Okay, this is when it hit. So this is kind of like the last thing from this time period. This is from like 2019 into 2020. So we will just flip through this, and I guess after I'll just talk about it because we all know what happened in 2020. So I'm just gonna, we'll talk about it when we get there. This is when I was trying to come up with ways to potentially monetize my art. So I came up with like little like t-shirt designs or sweater designs, little like characters that I drew upside down accidentally. What the hell? That's pretty funny actually. Okay. Oh, look at these. We have little Kirby drawings. So cute. So small. This is my little love is all that matters. That's me. And I still think that. I still think that's true. But yeah, we have a lot of notes for school and stuff like that. Yeah, look at this is like for my storyboarding class. I think, was it for my storyboarding class? Or it was for something, I can't remember. Yeah, so look at a little bunny. Yeah, so this is when my art started to kind of, this is when I was slowly entering my flop era, okay? And I'll just say it. Oh, look at, there's a portrait of me with my camera. So yeah, this is when I was kind of getting burnt out on drawing, and I was trying to find different avenues for creativity and such. So film photography was one of them. Oh, I guess we have like Pokemon drawings. This is kind of it, I think, for this sketchbook. This is when just a lot of random crap in the back. So, I guess this is gonna be more of like the talky part of the video, where I get a little more real, I guess. this part of my life is a little bit more difficult to talk about. And I knew that this was going to happen because, you know, when I look back at like my middle school sketchbook, it's like, aw, I was just a little kid. Oh my God, it's so cute. Because I'm so far removed from that situation. But I think when it comes to this era of my life, it is a little bit more painful for me to talk about. So I'm sorry if this gets sad. You know, like it just is what it is. This is me trying to be real about how I've been feeling and how I was feeling at that time. First thing is first, art school. Should I have gone to art school? I still wrestle with that question to this day, if it was worth my time or not. Because the optimistic side of me wants to say yes, obviously, right? But should I had gone to college, should I had gone to art school at the period in my life in which I did, probably wasn't the best idea. I was kind of coerced into going to school, honestly, and I felt like I really didn't have another choice. Animation was kind of what I picked because I was at one point very interested in pursuing it as a career, but the more deeper into my schooling that I got, the more I was like, oh, maybe this isn't what I really want to do. But at that point, I was already halfway through and I didn't want to back out because I didn't want to have debt for nothing because I was taking out loans. So I kind of just was like, I'll just put the suffering away, just kind of stash it away and just try to get through school as fast as possible. And then COVID happened, and that was like the final pillar. That was the, like, if I had to like make like pillars of Hannah's burnout, it would be mental illness, Instagram, animation school / COVID, because I think those two are kind of the one and the same, honestly. Because COVID hit right in the middle of me going to school, and I thankfully, right before COVID hit, I had decided to take that semester off. And I'm really glad that I did, because I heard from my classmates that that was a nightmare, having to deal with it as COVID was just starting up. So that whole year, there isn't a sketchbook. There's no 2020 sketchbook. I was stuck at home. I was in a living situation that I should not have gotten myself into, and I was so, like, all of my escapism and tendencies, all of my habits from high school / early college were kind of starting to not work anymore for various reasons. And I got really depressed. I got really sad. I got really depressed. I really like didn't want to go back to school. Like, I was so close to dropping out. But I didn't. I finished school. This is kind of like, you can tell with like, especially like the last sketchbook I showed you, that it was just like, I like internally, just like drawing was just so difficult for me because I was doing so much for school. And listen, when I say, like, when I talk about like my hard time at school, I'm not dragging the school at all, like the schooling itself. Like, in all honesty, my animation school experience was very chill compared to like a lot of other people's experiences. Like when you go to like the big schools, like my professors were all so nice and so understanding and so empathetic, and they were like, there was probably maybe like one professor that I had that I didn't like, but all of the rest of them were so sweet, so nice, so understanding, and very chill, which I'm very grateful for. Had I had been in a situation where that wasn't the case, I definitely would have dropped out. I'm not even kidding. I'm not blaming school, like the schooling itself. I've always had a hard time with school. Why I decided to try and get my bachelor's, I don't know. Like I said, I was kind of just like, all of it happened so fast. where it was like between like 2017 and like 2020, so much had happened and so much had like just there's a like 1,000 trillion and one things going through my mind at this point in time. And once 2020 kind of really hit hard, that was when I was just like that was the first time I felt like I had a chance to slow down in years. So once I kind of had a taste of that, that was kind of when I started to really break down and like be like, holy shit, like I totally burnt myself out. And like this is when it really started to become difficult for me to draw regularly at this point, at that like 2020, because there is the struggles, my struggles were still going pretty hard. And if anything, a lot of things were kind of getting worse at that point, you know, in large scale and small scale. And I think this is really the time when I decided to take a step back and really stop my hyper escapist tendencies and try to start handling these topics head on. And a lot of my struggles and tribulations, they took up so much of my headspace, they took up so much of my day-to-day life, that it was so hard for me to just like find time and like the energy to really like think about my stories, my art, my characters, my inner world, you know. Two, this was also like when social media was like really starting to take over my perception of reality, my perception of like who I was as a person. My art Instagram was not taking off like I had hoped it did. And that was also like a huge that led to like a huge level of shame and guilt. And it made me feel terrible about myself. I'm not gonna lie. Like I would just be so like scared and anxious to even open Instagram, my art Instagram, because I was just so like embarrassed. It was like, well, these other animation students have thousands of followers. Why can't I? You know, like, but it was so hard because I didn't like drawing that much at this point. So I would just try to force things. And obviously when you try to force things, it's not the same. It doesn't really work. And this was like, this was kind of like the breaking point for me. That was COVID, obviously, was the breaking point for me. That was a lot of people's breaking point, you know? Yeah, so I don't know. It's interesting because I think we've all experienced this with COVID happening, that like after COVID, time just completely folded in on itself and it just doesn't make sense anymore. So the things that I'm talking about now that were happening at around this time just don't feel like that long ago, but they also feel like a whole lifetime ago. It's just so interesting to think about and to talk about. Like a lot of the things that I'm talking about, like my personal stuff, I have for the most part made peace with, right? You know, like I couldn't have controlled any of what happened. For the longest time, I felt a lot of guilt and a lot of shame because I felt like it was my fault, because that's kind of how I was made to feel about a lot of things in my life. And now I've come to terms with the fact that it wasn't my fault. It was just circumstances. Sure, I could have handled things better. I could have done certain things differently. I could have cut things off with people maybe sooner than I did. But, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. This was when I was starting to take more photography photos, and honestly, that really helped me a lot. Just doing something different that wasn't drawing, because this association in my brain of like pain and drawing was like starting to become really prevalent, to the point where every single time I would try to draw, I would start crying. Like there would be times where like I would start crying, and that still sometimes happens to this day. Like I'll be real with you. I think going through and like really talking in depth about this, like in front of a camera, I'm like, you know, it does something for me, and I think it makes it a little bit easier for me to come to terms with a lot of my shame and guilt, because now I'm at a point where it's like, well, you know, who cares, you know? I'm kind of jumping the gun by talking about some of this stuff because there are still some sketchbooks that I want to go through for the last video, because I think the next video is going to be the last in like the sketchbook tour kind of series. But like I said, time has just been so fucky for the past like 5 years that it's like the things that I'm talking about, they just don't feel like they happened that long ago, but at the same time they do, you know? So yeah. So next video, it's gonna be a little bit difficult because, well, these are like, the next sketchbooks we're gonna go through are like my most recent ones over the last like 2 or 3 years. I didn't get a sketchbook going until maybe like 2022, like late 2021, 2022. I have to go back and check. I feel like over time I've kind of, it's been kind of difficult for me to talk about these things, just because especially on social media now, it's very much like you're trauma dumping if you say anything about your personal life online now, which is like, whatever, like it is what it is. But yeah, I don't know, it's just like I can't talk about my burnout without talking about the stuff that was going on behind it, right? And it's sad. I just hope that in me talking about my own struggles, you know, it can help people feel a little bit more seen in their own struggles, you know what I mean? Because it's like, there is this idea of an artist that social media, like the algorithm, loves to prop up, where it's like the prodigy artist child who grows up and immediately gets into CalArts and works for Disney and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, and they have all these ideas, and you know, all of their art is super polished and super nice, and it's like, I don't know, I just want to show, like, I want to show my shitty drawings from my time, you know, in school, to kind of show that like that's a very, very small percentage of like what people are actually drawing, you know? That experience just isn't the norm. It's an exception. It's the exception, you know, but it's been propped up as the norm, you know? And I'll get into this finally in the last video, which will be my most recent sketchbooks we will go through. And that's gonna be hard because obviously there's still a lot of things in those that I'm kind of like attached to emotionally that I don't feel totally comfortable showing, but I have to do it. Like, I know if I do it, it'll help me. And that's what this is. Trying to help me trying to help myself, and in a way, maybe it'll help you. That's kind of my thought process for this. So, yeah. So, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.